Welcome to the Indian Film Festival of Cincinnati. I'm Rati Apana. I'm the executive director of the Indian Film Festival here. And with me is the beautiful, talented, and very successful director Priya Belliappa of the award winning short film, Frayed Lines, that draws attention to migrant workers in the Indian subcontinent. I want to talk a little bit about Priya, but first I want to say welcome, Priya. Welcome to our show.
Thank you so much, Rathi.
Thank you so
Thank you
much
so
for
much.
your beautiful film. We at the film festival really enjoyed watching it. To tell you a bit about Priya, Priya is an Indian film director and screenwriter. She has made a debut feature. Her debut feature film was Ring Road in 2015, and it was interesting because it was the first film to be made by an all-women crew. This film did very well. And Priya comes to us with a postgraduate degree in film direction from the Film and Television Institute of India. Her student film, while she was at the institute, Closer, won her the national award in the sound design category. And many of you watching today's film must have, been tuned in to the different sounds that she brought to the film. Her other student film, Hazy Gray Skies, featuring actor Nawazuddin Siddiqui in the lead role, premiered at the Karlovy Vary Fresh Film Festival in Prague, and then it traveled to many festivals after. She has assisted directors Sunil Sippi and Ram Madhvani on a couple of advertising films, and she was an associate director um, for the critically acclaimed Kannada film by Ravindra H.P. Das. She made her, thank you so much for being here, Priya. I do want to let folks know that your debut film, Ring Road, was recognized by UNESCO in their book on gender
Yes.
equality, heritage, and creativity for having an all woman crew. Congratulations. Um,
Thank you. Thank you so much for all your kind words and
Thank you. So, migration is a human condition. It's movement that's propelled by survival. And in this case, we're talking about seasonal
yes.
migration for employment. You have Assamese workers traveling almost 2,000 miles, 3,000 miles, I think, um, to get to these plantations in Kodagu,
Yeah.
right? So here they are
Yes. Yes.
coming a very long way, right? And and
Yes.
then
Yes.
they're here for a very short while, and then they go back. Am I right?
That's right.
So tell the
Yes.
audience um, what these folks, how much these folks earn when they're there, and what do they earn for every pound or maybe every kilo of coffee? I mean, we're all coffee drinkers here. We'd love to know a little bit more
Yeah.
about this migrant worker.
Okay. So basically, what is happening right now is because Coorg is such a small place and there's a worker shortage, and the economy of Coorg depends on all the coffee plantations.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens is because of the migration, because of the labor shortage, people
Mm-hmm.
come all the way from Assam, which, like you mentioned, is almost 2,000 to 3,000 miles away from Kodagu. And they come for almost 6 months. So they come just before the coffee picking season, and they also have to learn how to pick coffee and manage the estates before they actually go into picking the coffee. And
Oh,
then the
wow.
season goes in. Yeah. So what happens during this period is they actually learn maybe 2 months. They actually learn and they have to sort, the estate has to be worked enough in such a way that picking becomes easier.
Mm.
So they come for that and they stay through the coffee picking season and they leave. So it's almost 6 months of the year that they are in Coorg. But what happens is that I think the reason they come is during the coffee season they make 500 rupees. What is that? If how much is it if you convert it? A minimum of 500 rupees per person per day.
per day.
That is
So
how many
500
per day per
rupees would
person.
be
So a family may
about $50, about, no, it's less than $50 a day.
10. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So that,
So what happens is they come with their families, and that compounds to quite a bit of money in terms of daily wage in India. So what
mm,
they make in 6 months, I think, sees them through the year when they get back.
okay. So it's about 20, 15 to
So
$20 a
they
day.
come with huge family. Yeah, yes. So then that is a big amount in terms of daily wage for Indian laborers
So
and
are these
workers. And
labor?
they also come with a family, and they don't. Yeah,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry I
So,
interrupted. There is a bit of a
and they
lag.
have no. Yeah, there is. So I'll just finish this. So in case a person is very good and they are very fast and they have a family, so that amounts to almost a person like a family could get $100 a day for picking coffee.
Mm.
A family altogether, they can make $100 a day, which is a minimum of $100 a day. So that I think works quite well for them, and that's why they're willing to journey so far and come to a place where they don't speak the same language, and it's a whole different landscape altogether for them. It's alien to them, if you ask me. My parents are there and they don't speak the same language, but they somehow communicate and the work is done. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's the high income that they get is what drives them to come so far.
Oh, wow. I mean, that is a sizable income if they make, so that's about 7,000 rupees a day a whole family can make
Yeah, a
picking
big
coffee.
family. Yes,
If
yes,
it's a big
because they
family,
come with, yes, like they come with, exactly.
they
So,
come in.
like the
Mhm.
person in the film, for example, yes, like they have like brother, sister,
Yeah,
the family, and they have
it's an
yeah,
extended.
and if exactly, yes, and so that it works out for them.
Hmm.
And this year they're going to it's going to be a loss because the trains haven't opened up and the coffee picking season is going to start in a month or so, and they won't be able to travel. So I think their plans have all gone haywire right now, both in terms of the people expecting the workers to come and the workers who cannot make it this year because of COVID.
I see. So it'll be hard for the plantations as well to have their coffee picked, I would imagine, this year.
Yes, yes, definitely.
So, going back, I love the setting of the film, but going back to the film, what came first in your mind? Was it this whole issue of migration, or was it uh, the the plantation? I mean, which one came first? In order for you to do a film, did you say, "Hey, I need
The
to make
plantation came
a film"?
first. uh,
Sorry.
and to answer that, quite frankly, so I was actually in Coorg for a coffee picking season, and I was doing a sort of photo story for myself more than anything else. I was documenting what happens inside a coffee plantation.
Mhm.
And then I started to speak to the people who were working there. And that's when the germ of the film came about, because I
Oh,
started to listen to their stories and I was fascinated. I was like, okay, this is really interesting that they would leave everything in terms of children come with their families, so that means they are not actually going to school for that much of the year.
hmm.
So they do 6 months of school and they come, and I don't know how they go back and catch up, but there's a lot that goes into them having to make this journey. But I think in terms of availability of work there as opposed to here, it makes sense for them to feed their families. So that's why, and that's how that's what fascinated me and their stories. And then it also happened that they came from Assam, and there was the issue of citizenship that was going on there. So there was a lot that unsettled me as well. So that was the germ, and then I spoke to them, I researched more, and that's how I started this film.
And the film was so layered, and the migration, of course, is the big theme there, but also I guess migration is because of lack of employment. And you had the young man there too who had a PhD and was
Yes, yes,
unemployed, and so you
yes,
wove that so beautifully into the story as well. And it gave us something to think about because these are very real issues in the country. Um, and this whole
yes,
the whole need for survival, which is what you brought through so beautifully
yes.
in the film. You did an excellent job of that. I wanted to ask you, are you behind that camera the whole time, or were you directing a camera person?
I was directing a camera person, but
Okay.
what we did was we wanted to keep it as organic as possible. So we went in with a very small unit, and it was like we put fiction into reality. So
Mm.
other than the two lead actors, everybody else who's in the film are actual workers doing their work. And
Yeah.
we've only inserted these two actors to make the film as real as possible. Otherwise, I don't get the feel, because if I get in actors for every other role, then it becomes quite
Yeah.
artificial in that sense. Here there was a reality,
Mm.
and these actors, because they were also so good and they were also so nuanced in their performances, they could pull off being amongst the real workers.
Yes, yes. I particularly like the analogies that you brought with the red ants, and they were telling a story
Yes,
in parallel to the story that you had.
yes,
And
yes.
maybe tell our audience a little about that. Um, you know, yeah, because a lot of folks here probably are wondering how did the ants come into play, and they probably don't know about them. And so I would love to hear your point of view on that, because you did that so beautifully, and breaking from the folks to the ants. I really like that transition a lot. So tell us a little about how you did that and why you chose the ants, and because our viewers probably don't know. So go ahead.
Okay, I'd be happy to actually talk about that, because what was interesting to me when I went into that plantation and started documenting and feeling the space before I could actually shoot the film was what was around me. Most often, what happens is we go to a place or a space, and then we forget the details that's around us. We don't pay attention to that. And
Mhm.
there's life everywhere. There's a different life that's actually going on that you have no idea about. We are actually so engrossed in, say, technology or something else, that we forget these little things that are around us. And as I sat there, and there's this coffee tree, and I noticed these ants, and I was like, and I started following them, and they were everywhere that I went. And I realized that the coffee plantation is filled with these red ants that are
Mm.
sporadically living in on different trees. And it was beautiful to just watch them. And if you pay attention to the details of the ants, I sort of metaphorically use them in terms of
You did.
lines. They're walking on lines, and how, yeah. So eventually I captured these moments and I put them together on the edit. And I was surprised just with the editor that, it sort of gave a different layer to the
You
film
did.
and took it to a different space altogether. And I was happy that I actually gathered the surrounding of the plantation. And my idea was twofold. One was to metaphorically communicate what was happening, in the sense like to have a parallel
Mhm.
narrative. And the other was simply to look around and observe what is around you when, when you're in a space.
You know, you did that very beautifully. It did add a very nice dimension to the film, and like you said, it captured me. It captured the audience because you could literally see the parallel that was going on, and also the fact that you said, yeah, life is lived in these orderly lines, and this is what you do, and this is how you go about your stuff, and yet, for the protagonist in this film, um, it's this orderliness that's really disrupted her very being, in fact, right? And she, somewhere along the line, she says something about,
Yes, yes.
which is where I think you probably thought about the title, or I'd like to know how you did that, because I think she says something about um, the uncertain and broken lines, and she talks about herself being a stranger and not
Yes,
belong,
yes,
and yet living within some boundaries. So tell
yes,
me about those lines in your
yes.
script, and tell our viewers, little about how that maybe also led to the title of your film, if it did.
Okay. So as I no, I'll tell you, because that that part was is very deep, and is something that I really thought about and I felt for, and I wrote those lines because when I was talking to these migrant workers from where the story actually formed,
Mhm.
I I sort of empathized with their situation, and I come from a privileged background compared to that, and I can't even begin to think of not belonging somewhere. We are
Mhm.
so like privileged that, okay, I am from here. I have all of my life sorted. I mean, of course, with ups and downs, but my life is sorted in that sense that I belong. I have no question about that. And then I started to think deeply, and I was like, all these boundaries are all man-made,
Mhm.
boundaries, and states and countries, and we are all sort of bound by these boundaries and what the rules of these lands. What I'm trying to say is that
Yeah.
we as individuals are living by some unsaid rules that are guiding us or forcing us to stay in line. But she, for example, has no idea, in the sense she has no parents, for example, in the story.
Mhm.
So she doesn't have a birth certificate, which is essential for a citizenship. But she
Mhm.
has lived within these lines. Now, where is she to go if she doesn't belong here?
Mhm.
There are people like that I spoke to, and they don't have documents to prove their citizenship.
Mhm.
If it comes that they have to show something or not, what are they like? It's unimaginable what they'd be going through and what they're going to do to survive or to live.
And where do
Where
they,
is the space
and
that
where,
will take them in? And that's, yeah, yes, where do you go? It's um actually, I can't even wrap my head around it when I'm talking to you now, because it's, you go into these circles and there are no answers for these questions. And this is, I mean, then I think about humanity. It's a much wider discussion. It's a much wider thought. It's happening world over.
Mhm.
Migration is what human beings, we are what we are because of migration. We can't stop that. How do we do it better? How do countries do it better is the question. I mean, these are just thoughts. I have no power in this. The only thing
Yes.
I can only think about it, and I can put it into my art, but that's it. But I wonder. My aim was to have a conversation
Mhm.
because it's something that bothers me. So I was hoping that it would lead to a conversation, maybe lead to a wider conversation, and I don't know. Maybe we could, as humanity, think about
Mhm.
the other person, for example, at some point.
And Priya, that's why your movie is so powerful, because it is talking about that human condition. the fact that as human beings we migrate for survival, and as human
Yes.
beings we have a sense of belonging, and yet as human beings somebody else decides for us what, where and
Yes.
how we belong. And so I I think that's why this film was so powerful, because it really was very thought provoking. On the one end, I guess at one end of the spectrum, you can just see the movie and see it as a movie, but it's really it really gave us a lot more than just a film. It really made us begin to think about this. So I think in your own way, you have started that conversation, and it is making people think about it. And like you said, it's not just in this particular region, but it's the world over. And talking about that too, you have this young girl who can't speak the language, and then you have this young man who belongs to that land. And then even though they can't talk to each other, they're able to connect as human beings, which is huge. And we do connect irrespective of
Yes.
our differences, because
Yes.
we
Yes.
see, we see the connection, we see the similarities. And um, and I think that's a huge lesson too, because no matter where you migrate to, human connections cannot be stopped. It's so inherent in us. But take me back
Yes.
also to
Yes.
that area that you are. Um, I'm sure it's a very conservative area. And how is it seen when you have migrant workers intermarry with the locals? Is that looked upon okay? Is it not? Or what are your thoughts about
Uh,
that? You frame that film.
I'm sure it's not. No, I'm sure that it would not be looked upon kindly,
Mm-hmm.
for sure, because somehow, like every region, when they start to think about themselves in a limited way, that this is who they are, and these are their so-called values, and you can marry in this community or not in that community. I think that is a very narrow thinking that is quite prevalent uh, right now.
Mm-hmm.
And if a young boy from that region were to marry a migrant worker, it would I think it would create
Mm-hmm.
quite a buzz, and it would be yeah, I'm sure it would not be looked upon kindly at all.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's true. As society progresses, we hope that that changes. But that's true of societies all over, I guess. And that's the whole idea
Yeah,
behind
I
it
think,
as well.
yes, I think somehow, we're supposed to be progressing in a different direction, but we are going
Regressing.
inwards, instead of instead of
Absolutely.
opening and going, and taking in more and actually opening up to the world. Because I mean,
Mhm.
with internet and with the world coming as one, essentially we're world citizens. If you look at
Correct.
it like that, we're all people of
Correct.
the earth,
Correct. Correct.
following
Absolutely.
different theories and philosophies and religion. But
Yeah.
I wish we would go broader sooner, because I think it's time. I think it's time to look at the world in a different sort of way.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you on that. And it's interesting how we are getting more nationalistic across the globe as well. And I totally get
Yes,
that. But your
yes,
film then,
yes.
gave us pause. I enjoyed the pacing of the film as well. Was very, very good, very measured. And you were able to, in that short span of time, communicate a lot. And so kudos to you. It was very powerful. I had a question about the sounds in the film.
Yes,
I
yes.
was I was struck by that, and um,
Okay.
and I'm sure my audience was as well. I want to sort of get your take on why was that important to you, and what was that motivation behind doing that? Because it really made the film whole. It was beautiful.
Thank you. I'll tell you about that. Um, in film school, like the master class that I attended was the only thing that I took away very strongly, and that was the fact that film is sound and video, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of people just pay attention to the video, and they fill up the space with music or just the general dialogues, and it's not so deeply constructed. So what I wanted to do while making this film was to have a sound story as well. We have a
Mm.
visual story, we have that going, but I wanted the story to be told in terms of sound as well, as so that they come together and they actually take it to a different level. And
Mm.
that was my idea, because when you juxtapose a visual with a sound, you can just have the general regular sounds, but when you juxtapose something else, it gives a deeper meaning, it gives you something else, and then you actually think, okay, what was that, what kind of sound, when you have, for example, I started the film with um, the same dialogue that I actually reversed in the beginning where we have the title sequence. So it's the dialogue about the boundaries that I reversed because
Mm.
I wanted it to be ambiguous in
Mm.
the sense, but still have the flavor of what she is saying.
Mm.
And in terms of, like, in the end of the film, there's the ants. There are these two ants, and there's one ant that's helping over the barbed wire.
Correct.
And I used the heartbeat over there to
Yeah.
signify. I could have used words. I could have used a dialogue, but instead I decided to use a feeling. I decided to use, what they were going through at that
Mm.
time. So I used the heartbeat, and my sound designer actually merged it with the sound of the auto through the end, and so
Yeah.
that
Beautiful.
sort of worked at a different level for me. So I'm interested in actually communicating something without actually communicating it directly.
Mm. Mm.
So if somebody is actually keenly watching, they understand it at a different level rather than me just telling them that, okay, they're nervous now or they're feeling
Yeah.
happy now. You
Mhm.
know what I'm saying? And we
Absolutely.
also recorded all the sound, yeah, for real, and then played with the sounds, and then decided to design it in such a way that we could gain more from what we already had.
Ah, because I was going to ask you, did you sort of, I was actually going to ask you that, did you just record all the sounds and then, and of course, I mean, that's how it's done. That was really beautiful because I think when people watch the film and they felt the film, and very often you feel the film and you don't understand what it was that made you feel the film, because like you so rightly said, you're not really dissecting it and looking at the various layers. It's this whole film, right? It's only on second,
Yeah.
play, and then and somewhere it sparks that, oh yeah, I'm feeling this, and I'm feeling this because of the sound. So beautifully done, Priya. I really, really enjoyed it. What are your plans for the next film? I'm curious to know if you have something ahead of you. Um, yeah.
Actually, the plan was, this film started off as a feature in terms of script.
Mm.
I was writing the feature before I actually did the short, but I did realize that it was going to be an offbeat sort of independent film rather than something that would be a commercial venture. So I wanted to do the short film as uh, to also see how I'm gathering information and what is going into this, the film that I was thinking of as a feature. So my plan was actually to shoot the feature, but
Mm.
I think I'll have to wait a year for that because, like I explained to you earlier, there are no workers coming in this year,
Yeah.
and we won't be able to actually film.
Yeah.
Yes, because I want to have the flavors of, like the film involves their journey from
Yeah.
Assam, their train journey. It has a lot that's woven in with coming in, the hardships. They all
Yeah.
come in a cabin, you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So I want
Yeah.
to capture all of that, which will not be
Yeah.
possible this year. So I'll have to wait for that. Yeah, for that. And then execute the film. In the meantime, yeah,
So that's your
write a
next
couple of
project.
scripts.
So that's your next project, and now you're working
Yes.
on different scripts. The actors in the film, she does a beautiful job,
Yes.
and so does he. Now, are they both seasoned actors? If you could tell our audience, are they actors, or did you?
Yes, they are.
They both are, and are they both from those
They are.
communities, or?
She's no, he is. He's from Coorg, and he's a theater actor
Mm,
who's working in Bangalore currently.
mm,
She is actually, I'd say, an international actor because she's been working with many international directors and producers, and
mhm,
she's um, she's done a lot of independent films. She's won the national award as well,
mhm.
and for me, she fit in terms of she looked like she was a part of that community. So
Yeah.
that's how I approached her, and lucky for me, she said yes. So I got two seasoned actors. Yeah.
Lovely. I mean, it was beautiful. Thank you for giving us such a lovely film at the festival. We really enjoyed it, and we do hope that you'll come back with more films, and we'll be able to share those films with our audience as well. Thank you, Priya, for being with us. And if you have anything to add, please do that now.
Thank you, Rati. Thank you so much for featuring the film.
Yeah.
And I'm so happy with what this conversation, because you have actually gone into the details of the film, and you have actually understood so much more than I would, from a general audience. It's very heartening to see, to hear from you, and I'm very happy. Thank you so much for actually getting Frayed Lines to be a part of your festival.
Absolutely. And we appreciate the work that filmmakers put into the film. And so I think every film that we watch, I mean, I watch it as a work of art as well. Um, and this film really stood out. So I'm very happy to have it at our festival. I'm so proud of your work as well. Congratulations, and
Thank
thank
you.
you for that compliment. Yes, it was beautiful.
No, no, thank you. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much, Rati.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much, Priya. So, folks out there, to the audience, I just want to say thank you for joining us today. And we just spoke with Priya Belliappa of the short film Frayed Lines. If you hadn't seen it, please go into our virtual festival and catch the film. Thank you.